You have gathered here today not merely to listen to words, but to enter into a living current that has flowed beneath humanity for thousands of years. It is the current of symbols, of visions, of dreams, of truths that appear to some and remain hidden from the many. When I speak of the danger of seeing what others do not, I do not speak of imagination gone astray, nor of madness alone. I speak of the peculiar burden of consciousness, the torment and gift of perceiving deeper than the surface, of beholding what ordinary eyes pass over as though it were nothing. There is a terror in vision, because vision cuts into the soul like a blade. To see is to awaken, and to awaken is to be exiled from the comfort of the herd. When a man or woman awakens to what others cannot yet see, they become a stranger in their own land. They are like the prophets of old, who spoke in voices of fire, who dreamt dreams in the desert, who trembled before visions that seared the marrow of their bones. And yet, those around them did not understand. The crowd always prefers the blindness of consensus to the clarity of one who stands apart, to see the hidden structure of the psyche, to discern the movements of archetypes beneath ordinary life, is to be burdened with solitude. It is to carry a knowledge that cannot be neatly explained at the dinner table, cannot be confessed without risk of ridicule or fear. This is why so many who glimpse the depths retreat into silence or cloak their vision in the language of art, poetry, or myth. They sense that their truth is radioactive, too potent to be held by unprepared hands. There is danger in seeing, because what is seen cannot be unseen. Once the veil parts, the old innocence is lost. The dreamer who awakens in the middle of the dream cannot fall back asleep as if nothing had happened. The soul has been disturbed, initiated, wounded, and marked. This is the eternal pattern. Adam and Eve in the garden plucked the fruit of knowledge, and suddenly the world is no longer innocent. They are expelled, not by a cruel God, but by the unbearable weight of awareness itself. The serpent is the image of that psychic force that whispers, "Open your eyes, and you will be like gods," knowing good and evil. But the gods know the price of such sight. It is exile, alienation, the long wandering in the wilderness of the unknown. I tell you, those who see what others do not live as outcasts of perception. They look into a crowd and sense the hidden fear beneath the laughter. They look into a friend's smile and glimpse the shadow crouched in the corners of their soul. They cannot be satisfied with appearances, for appearances reveal themselves as masks, and once one has discovered the mask, one cannot help but wonder about the face that hides behind it. This is what haunts the suspicion that every gesture, every word, every dream conceals another layer, another truth. Life itself becomes a labyrinth of symbols. The danger is not only in what one sees, but in being consumed by the search for what lies behind it. Yet vision is not given at random. It is often those who have suffered, those who have been broken, who are given eyes to see what others ignore. Suffering awakens, trauma rejection, despair, they tear the veil, and in that tearing, the psyche may glimpse its own architecture. This is why many mystics are born out of illness, why many prophets are wounded souls, why poets so often write with blood as their ink. What is invisible to the world presses upon them with unbearable urgency. They cannot look away, and in their relentless gaze, they see not only light but shadow, not only promise but abyss. To see the psyche is to confront both God and devil, both wholeness and destruction. That is the haunting. What you see is never simple, never innocent, never one-sided. It is a double-edged sword of perception. Let me speak to you of the shadow, because the shadow is always the first and most frightening revelation. When you see what others do not, you begin to notice how much of life is repressed. Then yet, cast into the dark, you notice the fury behind the mask of civility, the envy behind the praise, the lust behind the moralizing. You notice it in others, and if you are truly honest, you notice it in yourself. And this is where the danger sharpens. For if you cannot bear to see your own shadow, you will project it onto others. You will live in constant suspicion, haunted not by the demons within, but by the belief that the demons are always outside. Many who glimpse the truth fall into paranoia, unable to accept that the haunting figures they see are their own rejected parts, crying out from the depths of the unconscious. To see clearly is to recognize that the outer world mirrors the inner world, and this recognition is no easy task. The psyche speaks in images, not in rational concepts. It reveals itself through dreams, symbols, synchronicities. When one sees what others do not, one begins to notice these patterns weaving through ordinary life. A dream of drowning, followed by a sudden rainstorm, an encounter with a stranger who utters a phrase you dreamt the night before, a symbol that appears again and again until you can no longer dismiss it as coincidence. This is the language of the unconscious, the whisper of archetypes, but to perceive this language is to live in a different order of reality. Others will say you are superstitious, delusional, reading too much into things, and yet, for you, these signs pulse with undeniable significance. You are forced into a lonely fidelity to honor what you see, even when the world denies it. But let us not romanticize this gift. To see what others do not is also to feel what others cannot bear. Empathy itself becomes an affliction. You sense the pain behind another's words, the grief they hide even from themselves. You are flooded with the emotions of others, as if the veil between souls has grown thin. And yet, you cannot easily express this without being accused of exaggeration, of being too sensitive. In truth, it is not sensitivity alone, but permeability. The psyche of one who perceives deeply is porous, open to the currents that pass unseen by others. Such a person often feels haunted not only by their own shadow, but by the collective shadow of humanity. They dream dreams that are not only theirs, They are visited by archetypal figures that bear the weight of the whole species. They carry myths inside their fragile human frame, and so the haunting is not only psychological but metaphysical. To see what others do not is to brush against the edges of eternity, to glimpse truths that disturb the certainty of ordinary life. Death ceases to be an abstraction. It becomes a presence. Fate is no longer a word. It becomes a living force felt in the marrow. The soul itself becomes undeniable. And once the soul is seen, the entire world changes. You cannot live as before. Every gesture, every word, every choice becomes saturated with meaning. You feel as though you live inside a myth, as though you are both the hero and the sacrifice. It is a heavy destiny, for no one else can carry it for you. Do not think, however, that this vision leads only to despair. The danger is real, yes, but so is the promise. For what haunts you is also what can heal you. The vision reveals not only the darkness, but the possibility of integration, the path toward wholeness. To see what others do not is to be invited into the work of individuation, the lifelong task of uniting the conscious with the unconscious, the human with the divine. The haunting is a summons. You are haunted because something in you longs to be reconciled, longs to be seen, longs to be brought into the light. The psyche itself seeks its own healing through the very images that terrify you. This is why I tell you, do not flee from what you see. Do not numb it, deny it, or drown it in distraction. Sit with it, let it speak, for the haunting is the voice of the soul, demanding your attention. And yet, I will not deceive you. To accept this path is to walk alone. Few will understand. Many will mock or fear you. Even those who love you may beg you to close your eyes again, to pretend you do not see, but you cannot go back. You are like the man who has stumbled into the underworld and returned with ashes in his hair. No one believes the tale, but you know it is true, because you still smell the smoke. The haunting is real, the danger is real, but so is the transformation. Those who endure the fire return not destroyed but transfigured. They bear the mark of one who has descended and returned. Their eyes shine with a light that is not of this world. They have become mythic themselves. So, I ask you, will you dare to keep your eyes open? Will you dare to let the haunting guide you instead of destroy you? Will you accept that seeing what others do not is not a curse, but a vocation? For the soul does not show you what you cannot bear, it shows you what you must bear. The difference lies in whether you resist or surrender. Resist, and you will be torn apart by your visions, consumed by your shadow, alienated from life. Surrender, and you will discover that the haunting was never meant to kill you, but to initiate you. You will learn that the darkness hides a seed of light, and that what you see, others may one day need to hear. For you are not chosen to see for yourself alone, but for the collective, for the healing of the human soul. The one who sees beyond the veil stands in a perilous place. Suspended between two worlds, on the one hand, the ordinary life presses with its duties, its laughter, its illusions of stability. On the other hand, the abyss of the unconscious yawns, open, calling, seducing, threatening to devour the fragile ego that dares to peer too deeply. It is this tension that haunts. You live in a world where others chatter about trifles, where the surface gleams with distractions, but you have touched a current beneath that cannot be forgotten. The current pulls at you, reminding you that behind every mask there is another mask, and behind every shadow, a deeper shadow. You are caught in a spiral, compelled to follow the thread, yet fearing where it might lead. This is why many who glimpse what others do not are accused of madness. Madness is not always delusion. Sometimes it is vision that overwhelms the vessel. The unconscious is vast, and the ego is small. To receive too much too quickly is like pouring a river into a clay cup. The cup cracks. What others call insanity may, in truth, to be the eruption of archetypes, the flooding of images too potent for the conscious mind to contain. But the line is thin between the seer and the madman. The prophet raves, the lunatic raves. Who can tell the difference? The distinction lies in integration. If one can endure the images, if one can suffer them consciously, if one can wrestle with them as Jacob wrestled the angel, then the vision becomes wisdom. But if one is overwhelmed, if one flees or collapses, the same images become torment, fragmenting the soul. And so the danger is real. To see is to risk dissolution. The haunting is not only of spirits, but of the flood of images that the unconscious thrusts upon the perceiver. You may dream night after night of the same figure, hear voices whispering in symbols, see patterns unfolding in daily life, until you fear you are losing touch with reality. And indeed, you are losing touch with consensual reality, the fragile agreement the many uphold to protect themselves from the abyss. But perhaps it is necessary to lose touch, if only for a time, in order to touch the deeper truth. The task is not to remain exiled forever, but to journey into the depths and return with something that can be shared, something that bridges worlds. I will tell you what the ancient myths knew. Every descent requires a return. Orpheus descends to the underworld, but he must come back to the light. Inanna is stripped naked and hung upon a hook in the land of the dead, but she arises again. Christ descends into hell and ascends resurrected. These are not mere stories. They are psychic maps. They reveal the pattern of what happens when one sees what others do not. First, the descent, the haunting, the disorientation, the confrontation with darkness. Then, if one endures, the return, the integration, the transformation, the bearing of gifts for the world. But many lose themselves in the underworld. Many see but cannot endure, hear but cannot interpret, descend but cannot return. That is the danger. Vision without integration is destruction. The haunting will often come through dreams, for dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. A dream may reveal an image that terrifies you, a beast, a shadowy figure, a grotesque face, and you will awaken trembling, haunted, not by the dream alone, but by the sense that it means something more than you can grasp. You may dismiss it, but the dream returns. You may deny it, but the image stalks you in waking life. This is the psyche insisting on being heard. It is not random. It is a message, but the psyche does not speak in the language of reason. It speaks in the language of symbol, myth, paradox. To see what others do not is to be forced into learning this language, to become fluent in the tongue of the soul. It is a lonely apprenticeship, for few wish to learn this strange grammar. Yet it is a sacred task. Those who master it become healers, guides, Buddhas, prophets. But beware, the haunting images are not always luminous. They are often grotesque, violent, erotic, chaotic. The unconscious holds not only light, but the repressed, the forbidden, the shameful. To see what others do not is to confront what humanity as a whole denies. It is to feel the incestuous impulses, the murderous rages, the demonic archetypes that live beneath civilization's veneer. You will recoil. You will want to flee, but to flee is to betray the soul's demand for wholeness. Wholeness includes the shadow, the grotesque, the unacceptable. The haunting presses upon you until you can bear to look without flinching, until you can say, this too is mine. This too is part of humanity. This too belongs to the self. Only then does the image lose its terror. Only then does the haunting reveal itself as initiation, and yet do not be deceived. Wholeness is not comfort. To be whole is not to be at ease, but to live in tension, to hold contradictions without collapse. The danger of seeing is precisely this. You perceive contradictions everywhere, and the temptation is to resolve them prematurely, to cling to one side and reject the other. But the psyche demands a larger container. The opposites must be held until a third emerges, a symbol, a new possibility that transcends without denying. This is the work of individuation, the work of becoming who you truly are. It is not for the faint of heart. That is why the haunting feels eternal. It will not leave you until you answer its demand. Think of the archetype of the seer. In every culture, the one who sees is both revered and feared. The tribe turns to the shaman for visions, yet whispers that he is half mad. The prophet is sought for guidance, yet stoned when his message is too harsh. The oracle is consulted, yet her riddles drive men to ruin. Why is this so? Because the vision disturbs the collective sleep. To see what others do not is to disrupt the fragile consensus, the comfort of ignorance. The seer becomes a mirror, forcing others to glimpse their own shadows. their own unacknowledged truths. And people hate nothing more than being forced to see themselves. Thus the seer is haunted not only by inner visions, but by outer rejection, suspicion, even persecution. This too you must bear if you see what others cannot. But here is the paradox. What haunts you may also heal them. The visions that disturb you are often collective in nature. They are not yours alone. They are humanity's. You suffer them because you are porous to the unconscious of the whole. You dream not only your dreams, but the dreams of the age. You see not only your shadow, but the shadow of civilization. And this is why your task is sacred. If you can endure, if you can articulate what you see, if you can give form to the haunting images, you become a vessel for collective healing. Your art, your words, your actions can awaken others, can prepare them for what they have not yet dared to see. This is why you are given the vision, not to hoard, not to despair, but to mediate between the depths and the surface, between the unconscious and the world. Still, I must warn you again, the danger never vanishes. Even when integrated, the haunting remains. You will always feel a tension, a distance from those who have not seen. You will always carry the scar of exile. You will always wrestle with the abyss. But this is the destiny of the awakened. Do not seek comfort where your soul demands courage. Do not seek belonging where your path demands solitude, for it is precisely in bearing the haunting with dignity that you become whole. The world may never fully understand, but the self will recognize your fidelity, and in that recognition you will find a deeper belonging, a communion not with the crowd but with the eternal. To see what others do not is to carry a cross, but every cross is also a bridge. The haunting reveals itself in time as a passage. Through it, you move from ignorance to awareness, from fragmentation to wholeness, from isolation to participation in the great mystery of being. And though the haunting may never entirely leave, it transforms. What once tormented becomes a companion. What once terrified becomes a guide. The image that stalked you becomes the image that saves you. For the psyche is not cruel, it is purposeful. The haunting is the hand of the self, leading you toward what you would never choose, but what you most need. The haunting intensifies when the vision deepens beyond the personal into the archetypal. For at first, when you see what others do not, it may seem to concern only the hidden parts of your own soul, your wounds, your repressed memories, your unlived desire. This alone is overwhelming. But soon you discover that the psyche is not a private island but an ocean, and that your dreams open into the collective unconscious, the eternal storehouse of symbols, myths, and primordial forces. What haunts you then is no longer merely your own shadow, but the vast drama of humanity itself, repeating through you like a play in which you have been cast without rehearsal. Archetypes appear: the mother who nurtures and devours, the father who protects and oppresses, the child who promises renewal, yet remains vulnerable, the hero who ventures into danger, the trickster who deceives and liberates. These figures haunt the psyche because they are not simply images. They are living patterns that seize us, inhabit us, compel us to act. When you see them at work, both in yourself and in others, you can never again take human behavior as merely personal. You realize that every love is also a reenactment of ancient myths. Every hatred echoes with timeless conflict. Every dream is threaded with primordial motifs. This is a burden, for it robs you of naivete. Where others see a quarrel, you see the shadow of Cain and Abel. Where others see a romance, you see the dance of Eros and Psyche. Where others see mere chance, you sense fate. And once you see in this way, you cannot return to the innocence of believing life is random or simple. The haunting deepens because you know that everything participates in a cosmic order larger than your will. But why should this be dangerous? Because archetypes are powerful, and to see them clearly is to be tempted to identify with them. A man dreams he is the savior of the world. A woman dreams she is the goddess of all creation. They awaken, haunted by grandeur, consumed by the inflation of archetypal possession. This is the peril of vision. It can exalt the ego beyond its limits, driving one into delusion. The prophets of madness are those who mistook the archetype for their personal identity. They became Christ, became the hero, became the king, and in so doing, lost the balance between human limitation and divine pattern. The haunting whispers, "You are chosen, you are special, you are more than human," and perhaps it is true in one sense, but it is also poison if swallowed whole. To see archetypes is to hold them at arm's length, to recognize their reality, but resist their possession. You are not the God, you are the vessel through which the God may pass. To forget this distinction is to fall into madness, yet to resist entirely is also dangerous. For the haunting is not only temptation but summons. The archetype seeks to be expressed, lived, embodied in human form. If you deny it completely, you wither. If you refuse the call of the hero, you sink into cowardice. If you reject the wisdom of the old sage, you remain immature. The task is delicate, to live the archetype without being consumed by it, to let it shape you without enslaving you. This requires constant humility, constant self-examination, constant dialogue with the unconscious. Few can sustain this. That is why those who see are often scarred, why their lives are marked by both brilliance and suffering. The haunting is relentless because the archetype does not sleep. It presses for expression until the end. Consider the archetype of the shadow. When it erupts, you are haunted by images of what you most fear in yourself. You may dream of being pursued by monsters, of encountering grotesque figures, of committing acts of cruelty that horrify you. These are not fantasies, they are revelations. The psyche shows you the truth of what you repress. If you can endure, if you can confess to yourself that you too harbor hatred, lust, envy, and violence, then the shadow becomes integrated, and its energy is transformed into strength and compassion. But if you deny it, if you insist the monster is only outside, then you project it onto others, and the haunting turns you into an enemy of the world. This is why wars begin, why persecutions erupt, because people cannot see their own shadow. They must destroy it in others. To see the shadow is to be haunted, but it is also the beginning of peace. For only in seeing do we cease to project. Beyond the shadow lies the anima or animus, the inner image of the other sex. To see this archetype is to be haunted by longing, by visions of the ideal partner, the lost soulmate, the divine twin, dreams of mysterious women or enigmatic men visit you, stirring passions that cannot be fulfilled in ordinary relationships. These figures are not mere fantasies of desire. They are bridges to the unconscious, mediators between the ego and the self, yet they haunt with unbearable intensity. Many ruin their lives pursuing an external partner who matches the inner image, only to discover that the ideal was never flesh and blood, but spirit. The danger here is obsession, mistaking the symbol for the reality, worshipping a person as a god or goddess only to be shattered when their humanity disappoints. To see the anima or animus is to be called into inner dialogue, to love not only the outer partner, but the soul within. But until this is understood, the haunting leads through heartbreak and despair, and then there is the self, the central archetype, the image of wholeness, of God within. To glimpse the self is to feel the haunting of eternity. You dream of mandalas, of radiant figures, of a light that blinds and heals. You feel the presence of something infinite, a center that holds all opposites together. But the danger is greatest here, for the self overwhelms the ego. You may feel you have become divine, that you have transcended all human limitation. Many mystics fall into this trap, declaring themselves gods, dismissing the world, abandoning their human duties. Yet the true task is humbler, to serve the self, not to be it, to live as a conscious participant in its unfolding, not as its usurper. The haunting of the self is the most beautiful and the most perilous of all, for it draws you toward wholeness, but threatens to dissolve you if you grasp too tightly. When you see these archetypes at work, in dreams, in visions, in the patterns of your life, you may feel crushed by their weight. You may cry out, "Why me? Why must I see what others do not? Why can I not live in peace, like those who remain blind?" But understand, you see, because you are capable of bearing it, even if you doubt it now, the psyche does not waste its treasures. It reveals because it demands. You are haunted because something in you is strong enough to endure haunting. The haunting is not punishment, but initiation. It is the mark that you are being led, however unwillingly, into the work of individuation. You are called to become not a mere fragment, but a whole, and The path to wholeness passes through the valley of shadows, through the labyrinth of archetypes, through the fire of visions, but still I must speak to you of loneliness, for when you see what others do not, you will feel estranged. You will speak of your dreams and receive blank stares. You will share your insights and hear laughter or polite dismissal. You will ache to belong, but belonging will seem impossible. This is perhaps the deepest haunting, the sense of exile from ordinary human fellowship. And yet, do not despair, for loneliness is also the path to communion of another kind. If you endure it, if you remain faithful to what you see, you will discover that you are not truly alone. You will sense the presence of those who walked this path before you. The great cloud of witnesses, the shamans, mystics, prophets, poets. You will feel kinship with those who, across time and space, bore the same visions, and within you will discover that the self itself is companion. The haunting is terrible, yes, but it is also the doorway to a deeper fellowship, not with a crowd, but with the eternal. And let me say this, sometimes the haunting is not meant to be solved, but carried. Not every dream must be interpreted, not every vision explained. Some hauntings are wounds meant to stay open, reminders of mystery, of the limits of human understanding. To see what others do not is not to master all knowledge, but to be mastered by awe. The danger lies in trying to domesticate the mystery, to shrink it into formulas or dogmas. But the psyche resists domestication. It haunts precisely to prevent closure, to keep the wound open, so that through it the soul may breathe. Accept this. Let the haunting wound you, for through the wound the light enters. So I say to you, if you are haunted by visions, by archetypes, by shadows and radiant figures, do not flee, do not despair, bear it with dignity. Wrestle with the angel until dawn, even if you limp thereafter. For the limp itself will be the sign of your encounter with the divine. To see what others do not is to be forever changed, marked, set apart, but it is also to be initiated into the deepest mystery of human existence, that the soul is infinite, that the unconscious is a temple, that every haunting is also a calling, and though it will trouble you until your last breath, it will also guide you towards the wholeness you secretly seek. There is a peculiar terror and beauty in living with vision, for once your eyes have been opened to what others do not see. You discover that you are never entirely at home in the world again. The familiar is never simply familiar. The ordinary is charged with hidden significance. Every glance becomes a message, every silence a symbol, every accident a signpost. And this very saturation of meaning is what haunts you. You are no longer allowed to drift asleep in the soft dream of collective life. You have tasted the fruit, and there is no return. You are compelled to interpret, to wrestle, to ask, to suffer This is the burden of seeing, and it will remain until your last day. But the psyche, wise beyond measure, does not reveal without purpose. The haunting is not cruelty. It is a summons. You are not haunted simply to be tormented. You are haunted to be transformed. The visions you endure are the initiations into the mystery of what it means to be human, into the paradox of being both finite and infinite, shadow and light, animal and divine. The haunting is the hand of the self pressing you toward wholeness, demanding that you cease living as a fragment and begin living as a totality. To see what others do not is to be called to embody a truth larger than yourself, yet do not imagine this truth is neat or final. It is not a creed to be recited, not a system to be mastered. It is a living paradox. To be whole is to hold contradictions without collapse, to dwell in tension without escape. You are light and shadow, saint and sinner, wounded child and eternal self. The danger lies in trying to resolve this tension prematurely, in clinging to one pole and rejecting the other. That way lies fanaticism, inflation, and collapse. The work of individuation demands patience, humility, a willingness to suffer ambiguity. The haunting will never give you the false comfort of final answers. It will give you only the deeper mystery of participation in life's eternal unfolding. Let us speak of the dream, for the dream is the nightly haunting. You lie down to sleep, and in the darkness, the unconscious seizes you, drags you into theaters of symbol where you encounter what the daylight conceals. You dream of fire consuming your house, of a child lost in the woods, of a serpent coiled around your neck, of a radiant figure beckoning you to follow. These are not trivialities. They are messages from the depths. They haunt you because they are yours and not yours. Intimate and yet collective. They reveal not only your own fate, but the fate of the age. For in the dream, the individual and the collective are woven together. To ignore them is to betray yourself. To heed them is to walk the perilous path of vision. And once you begin to walk, the path will not let you go. But the haunting is not confined to dreams. It erupts in synchronicity, in those uncanny moments when the outer world mirrors the inner, when what you think or dream is reflected in events. You read a symbol in a book and the same symbol appears in the street. You dream of death and the next day a funeral procession passes by. These are not accidents. They are eruptions of meaning, cracks in the wall of causality through which the self shines. To see what others do not is to notice these cracks, to live in a world alive with hidden correspondence. But beware, here too lies danger. To see too much meaning in everything is to fall into delusion, into magical thinking that consumes the mind. The task is balance, honoring synchronicity without drowning in it, discerning the voice of the self without fabricating meaning where there is none. This balance is delicate, and it is this delicacy that haunts you. You are always at risk of falling into inflation or skepticism. madness, or denial. Only humility keeps you steady. And humility itself is born from suffering. The haunting will humble you. It will break your illusions of control, strip you of certainty, confront you with your own darkness again and again. You will stumble, you will despair, you will question your sanity. But if you endure, humility blossoms like a flower in the desert. You begin to understand that you are not master of the psyche, but its servant, not possessor of truth, but participant in mystery. And in this humility, a strange peace begins to dawn. You realize that the haunting is not an enemy, but a teacher, that every terrifying vision is also a guide. You begin to walk not in fear, but in reverence, not as one cursed, but as one initiated. What then is the ultimate purpose of this initiation? It is not knowledge in the rational sense, not power in the worldly sense. It is transformation of the soul. The danger of seeing what others do not is that it will destroy the small self you once were. And indeed, it will. The ego cannot survive untouched, but this destruction is also creation. The fragments are gathered into a larger whole, the opposites reconciled in a higher unity, the human reconciled with the divine. The haunting reveals itself at last. As the birth pangs of the self, you are remade, not into perfection, but into wholeness. And wholeness is the only salvation the psyche knows. Still, the haunting never leaves entirely. It lingers at the edges, reminding you that the work is never finished, that life is process, not completion. You will be haunted until your dying breath, for the psyche never ceases to unfold, never ceases to demand. But by then, the haunting will no longer terrify. It will feel like a companion, a shadow that walks beside you, a reminder that you are part of something infinite. Death itself will not end it. For the haunting belongs not only to the individual, but to the eternal. You will dissolve back into the collective unconscious, into the vast ocean from which you came, and there the haunting will become the song of eternity. So I tell you, do not flee the haunting, do not numb it, deny it, or bury it beneath the noise of the world. Accept it as the mark of your calling. You are not cursed to see what others do not. You are chosen. You are chosen to bear the vision, to suffer the exile, to walk the path of individuation. You are chosen to be a mirror to humanity, to reveal what it hides, to embody what it denies. You are chosen not for your own sake alone, but for the sake of the collective, for the healing of the soul of the age. This is the danger and the dignity of vision. This is what will haunt you forever, and also what will sanctify you. And when you falter, when the haunting grows too heavy, remember this: you are not alone. Countless others have walked this path before you. The prophets, the mystics, the poets, the shamans, they all bore the haunting. They all wrestled with visions. They all endured exile. You walk in their company, even if the world around you cannot see. And more than that, you walk with the self itself, the eternal center that guides you, the divine within that never abandons you. The haunting is its voice, its summons, its presence. Trust it, even in terror. Trust it, even in despair. Trust it, for what haunts you is also what heals you. What terrifies you is also what saves you. What sets you apart is also what binds you to the eternal. So open your eyes and do not close them again. Bear the vision. Though it burns, carry the haunting. Though it scars, live the paradox. Though it tears you apart, for in the end, you will discover that the danger of seeing what others do not was also the greatest gift of your soul. And though it will haunt you forever, it will also make you whole